Hello, everyone. Today we begin with a sentence written over 2,300 years ago and use it as a lens to reflect on leadership within the organizations we belong to. Subscribe to receive weekly, in-depth insights on the philosophy of the mind and leadership drawn from the classics. Don't miss this meeting point of ancient wisdom and modern psychology, a language of refined thought that elevates life. The classical phrase handed down from 2,300 years ago reveals a deep truth about human psychology in a single sentence. 文明媒介不利度人，分泄于人，可以赡害全身。如行无名，不以全推。阴邪诡计，可以韬光养的。Perfect honor and noble integrity should not be born alone. If shared with others, one can avoid harm and preserve oneself. In contrast, disgraceful actions and a tarnished name should not be entirely shifted onto others. If you take some blame yourself, you can conceal your brilliance and cultivate virtue. This passage conveys timeless wisdom, emphasizing the ethical balance one must maintain within a community. Honor cannot be built by individual effort alone, and mistakes or failures should be embraced maturely as a collective responsibility. Merit becomes more just when shared responsibility becomes more mature when born. 文明媒介不利度人, perfect honor and virtue should not be shouldered. Alone is more than just humility. It's the recognition that honor cannot be completed without the contributions of others. This aligns with Aristotle's view of humans as social beings. 如行无名，不以全推, disgrace should not be entirely shifted to others, teaches us the ethics of personal responsibility, echoing Stoic principles of self-discipline. In any organization or group, we sometimes experience the frustration of having our achievements taken by others, or being unfairly blamed for someone else's mistakes. In those moments, we instinctively struggle between our desire for recognition and our sense of justice. We want our contributions to be acknowledged fairly and responsibility to be shared justly. But in reality, the language of power often precedes the truth. 文明媒介不利度人, perfect honor and noble virtue must not be monopolized. This is not just about humility. If honor is not shared, it turns into arrogance. True integrity should arise not from external validation, but from internal balance. From a psychological perspective, taking credit for others' work is a form of ego projection, while shifting blame is a defense mechanism to avoid anxiety. But true maturity lies in the ability to remember those who helped in moments of achievement, and to maintain inner strength in the face of unfair criticism. Ultimately, we must ask ourselves, is the honor I am protecting now truly sincere? If I cannot share it, might I become someone who can no longer walk with others? The sentence introduced today is more than an ancient quote. It offers timeless insight for any organization. Where community and ethics matter, public institutions, schools, the military, religious groups, large corporations. This message is especially vital for middle managers, educators, those in positions of responsibility, and leaders. Why is that? Let's look from psychological and educational perspectives. First, let's consider schools. In educational organizations, how can this phrase be interpreted? Teachers constantly work for their students' growth, but their efforts aren't always fully acknowledged. In such cases, a willingness to share the credit becomes the strongest ethical lesson for students. Likewise, taking partial responsibility for failures instead of blaming others shows a reflective leadership in practice. Students learn not through words, but through actions. This phrase shows how teachers themselves can model humility and accountability. Second, let's look at public institutions and civil service organizations. In these organizations, performance is typically the result of collective effort, and responsibility is distributed across multiple departments. But what happens when someone tries to take all the credit or shift the blame onto others in such a structure? Psychologically speaking, this behavior stems from defense mechanisms driven by anxiety about authority. This small crack can ultimately break down group trust. As the classics teach us, the attitude of concealing one's brilliance and cultivating virtue isn't just about being modest. It reflects the balanced mindset of a mature self, similar to Erikson's final developmental stage of ego integrity. Moreover, a willingness to share credit and take responsibility strengthens a leader's emotional intelligence (EQ) and fosters trusted leadership within the organization. Finally, let's consider a case from corporate leadership training. As we all know, performance is a top priority in the corporate world. Profit, KPIs, competition, all are important. But what happens when these values become overly personalized? People become obsessed with results. Fear failure and a culture of responsibility avoidance emerges. This classical phrase calls leaders to the virtue of sharing success and the courage to accept failure. Such an approach nurtures a people-centered leadership and a relationship-centered culture, rather than one obsessed with outcomes. This aligns with the leadership traits of humility and courage emphasized in modern positive psychology. This classic wisdom asks us profound questions. Is the honor you're clinging to right now truly sincere? If you cannot share that honor, might you become someone who cannot stand alongside others? This is not just a moral tale. It prompts us to reflect on our human needs within organizations, to be recognized, to feel safe, and to be accepted as we are. It also invites reflection on educational values, fairness, humility, and responsibility. That's why I firmly believe this message can serve as a powerful tool in leadership education, especially in cultivating ethical leadership within community-based organizations. In closing this lecture, one final note. If you'd like to receive weekly content filled with classical wisdom and psychological insights, please subscribe. The language of philosophy and the classics designed to build a stronger inner self is waiting for you. Thank you.